To kick things off, I really like to start by defining the topic that we're going to discuss, just to make sure I'm on the same page as you as we go into this. There's growth metrics like likes, comments, shares, website traffic, purchases. But how would you go about defining an effective organic social media strategy for a D2C brand?
Yeah, I feel like it's the social attribution metric that is the last attribution mark to be unlocked. And again, Meta, TikTok, they want to hold on to that attribution number. They want to use it for your conversions and for your sales. But there's just something to be said. I can't tell you how many times as a brand owner that you'll make a comment, you'll respond to someone's post, and then you see in Shopify that they purchased, right? And so I have some theories of maybe how to work on that attribution. But overall, I think it comes down to the community you're building. Are they engaged, right? And I think we look at engagement and we looked at likes and shares. We Not every brand can build a Facebook group, but we have a 30,000 member Facebook group that is active daily. So that overall engagement and activity and the amount of comments we have are some metrics that I kind of look at for a successful. And again, I have other brands where maybe it's not as lower, and then understanding why. And it's because the brand's usually not engaging first. They're not the ones who are responding to comments, messages, and those types of things. So it's a relationship, and you got to treat it like a relationship. And I don't think a lot of brands do. A lot of them focus on paid media and email marketing, and they're cool with that revenue. Whereas if you want to build a more of a lifetime legacy brand, you have to have a relationship with your customers.
Well, and I know you do paid media as well. So it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like you prioritize both, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll still ask the questions. We're in this defining phase. You often hear people online, Twitter, LinkedIn, talk about, kind of paid social versus organic social, with the
Mm-hmm.
versus being the key thing. They're like, what do we want to prioritize, paid
Mm-hmm.
or organic that way? And if you Google the term organic social media strategy, two of the top five articles say organic versus paid in the headlines for that.
Yeah.
What's your stance there?
Blended ROAS.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I think it is a blended approach, right? I mean, again, if I'm starting a Shopify brand from scratch, I'm building an organic strategy first. I am, right? I'm not necessarily going with a paid, because with that organic strategy, you can have a lot of questions answered for what type of paid ads you want to run, what the community wants to see, what they're engaging with. And so I have always started with organic, and really it should be more of a symbiotic approach. And I think that's one of the conversations that I'm trying to lead more on a weekly basis, is like, do both, not just one or the other. But again, if we're looking at increasing the lifetime value of that conversion of the paid ad, your organic social is going to help you get there, which I think is very important.
Yeah, and as you shared previously, so you have a Facebook page for the business with 167,000 plus followers, and then
Mm-hmm.
a Facebook group with over 30,000 members in it as
Mm-hmm.
well. And both seem very active. And I was looking at your feed to look at the
Mm-hmm.
content that's going out on your Facebook page.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell there's certain posts that have, I believe it's the two founders
Mm-hmm.
in them, the two videos,
Mm-hmm.
that have just exponential
Mm-hmm.
engagement compared to other posts on there. And it seems like you
Right.
all have really cracked the content type that really performs well for you.
Mm.
One of the videos was them doing a recipe that somebody submitted in, I'm guessing through the
Yeah.
group that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I know you mentioned storytelling and how important that is for building a brand, but also for social media. How have you gone about navigating, figuring out what storytelling is like for your brand?
Yeah, I think every brand has a why. Every brand has a story, and when my partner reached out to me, him and his wife are making this product in their home, right? And what it came down to, it was a recipe that his dad actually would make for him as he was a kid growing up. And so kind of peeling back those layers of like, that's kind of where the story starts. And then our location, Hatch, New Mexico, really being the chili capital of the world. And how do you kind of educate other people about that? And so, it's like the Napa is to wine. We are to Chile here in New Mexico. And I think going back, to the type of content strategy, as you saw too, there's a lot of education of our products, right? How hot it is, how what's it taste like? Is there videos? Is there photos of it with other is there testimonials? And so we really try to educate the customers. But again, we want to have that authentic, live from the farm, live from the kitchen, and really blend that content together to give our customers something to really engage with.
And when you're building the page and you're building the group as well, do you see those as two separate entities? Although they're both on Facebook, do you have different strategies for them, or did you combine those two together?
As far as the cooking group and the regular page,
Yep.
yeah, they're two different strategies. We try to let the cooking group, I would say, ultimately what we want with our brand, and I think hopefully that most brands would want, is that it becomes the customer story. And what I mean by that is, so when you look at our regular Facebook page, it's this kind of family, homegrown, organic story of this couple, sharing recipes from their family and the recipes that they also cook in the kitchen with their family and friends. But then the cooking group, sort of like, we let it be our customer story, which is our ultimate goal. Is it to become our customer story, where all of a sudden, because what brings people together more than food, and all of a sudden they're using our products to cook their favorite recipes. And what I love is seeing the cross pollination of like our green chili with like fettuccine alfredo, right? Like you have this Italian American family who's now has this new unique kind of Southwest twist on an old family recipe, and now it becomes their story. Uncle Jimmy, he started putting green chili in this fettuccine alfredo, and as I would say, that's like our ultimate goal, is make the customer the main character. And a lot of times it is a blended approach. That top of funnel is that kind of founder story, but really for that lifetime value, as we talk about retention, subscription, memberships, overall repeat purchase rate, is we want, that's ultimately what we want. And we want to make them the star, which is why out of that group, every week we select a winner. They get a 6-pack, but they're also featured in a cookbook that we put out once a year,
Oh, wow.
featuring 52 recipes of the 52 past winners. And then, like you saw in that video, and another video that I'm publishing today, we'll take the recipes and cook it for them, and then also share it with our community. And again, now all of a sudden, Cassandra, now she's the star of the story, not necessarily Randy and Carol, but
Mhm.
the customer is. And so to me, that's I'm geeking out right now. That's the most satisfying aspect of what I do on a daily basis for our customers.
And do you know if that generates conversations in the group, or people DMing whoever made the recipe to ask questions about that? Like, does that help build that community that way?
It does, and that's the thing there. What I love is, yes, we do manage it with our customer service team, but it's also kind of self-managed as well, right? Like you'll have someone join the cooking group and be like, "Hey, I really want to try this, but shipping's too expensive." And then it'll be like 10 to 15 people talking about how shipping is not too expensive. It's the best product you ever had in your life, and they want it. And so they become our biggest advocates, and it's self-managed community. It's its own little social network, which is the highest compliment I could give that group.
Yeah. And there's so many different social media platforms out there, new ones popping up every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook tend to be the primary ones people think
Mm-hmm.
of. What's your presence across platforms? Do you really drill in on the one is working for you, Facebook, or do
Mm.
you kind of disperse it out?
Yeah, so we've really drilled into that audience with a higher price point who really resonate with Randy and Carol. I've been kind of a little bit more focused on Instagram myself. The top performing ads are myself at the farm, and then Randy kind of at the farm. And again, it's kind of reaching two demographics, which is ultimately what we want long term for the brand, is where, Randy's going to kind of reach more of the baby boomers. I'll reach more of the millennial Gen X. And then, at some point, someone's going to have to take over kind of the TikTok generation
Hmm.
for us. But that is something that is part of our strategy. We did set up on TikTok shops. It's been very frustrating experience for us at the moment. And we're not really that focused on it for Q4 because for our CS team and shipping team, we're just like, okay, we'll revisit this in January when we have a little bit more bandwidth.
Yeah, and from my understanding, normally TikTok shops normally like a lower price point, 10, 20, $30 type
Yeah.
product that way.
And our product could do well for that, because it is around $10 a jar.
Mhm.
So it could do well. I think that there's a possibility there. But our average order value is around $50 on our website, but Meta Shops is around 30. So I'm kind of expecting that Meta Shops AOV for that first time customer to be coming through on
Gotcha.
TikTok.
And so you say you're primarily focusing on Facebook, and from the sounds of your demographic and the price point of your product, that does, make sense. But if someone's listening and they're trying to figure out where to go, was that a hindsight realization, or did you go into it? Did you test a couple of platforms and then see that
Mm.
Facebook was performing and kind of drill in, or what did that look like?
We launched in 2019, and Meta just really had no other rivals at that point, right?
Mm,
Like TikTok wasn't in the conversation. It was really just Meta and Google, and that's where we've always kind of been. I think we do kind of realize in the DTC community that Meta's still king in a lot of ways for kind of scaling your brand. Google can be great too, depending on your niche. But I think people are a little fearful of TikTok, putting some eggs in that basket at the moment. At least for more of the legacy brands who've been around a little bit. If they're a new brand, I think people are having success with TikTok. But it's an interesting conversation. But the reason why we're there is just because it's been king and it still performs extremely well. We had a rough beginning in January and February, but things have performed, at least for us. And I know this is not across the board for a lot of brands, but it's almost been maybe even better than 20. I mean, it's been like 2020, 2021 for us
really?
as far as efficiency. Yeah, but again, it goes back to that blended approach. I think we've been investing in community and storytelling for 6 years, and it's really paying off for us. So, when I say that, I know that there's been a lot of hard work in the background to get us there, where that word of mouth and that repeat purchase rate is there, and also the quality of our product is better too.
Yeah, and I think that's where, going back to that paid versus organic social question that we were talking about earlier, I own a paid media agency. That's what we do, creative media buying that way. But I look at the organic side kind of like SEO, where it's earned. I mean, unless Google changes its algorithm and you lose all your rankings, but like you're saying,
Right.
it builds up over time. So it's reliable, that you're not having to, hope that your performance day over day with your CPA is hitting with paid ads. Organic builds up and has that community, which sounds very beneficial for you.
Yeah, and again, too, I don't know why. I mean, maybe you could help answer this question. As a paid media buyer, like, what do you think the disconnect between organic and paid is? You think it's just the time that you have to spend investing in it, or why do you think maybe it's not a priority for other brands?
Yeah, that's a good question. I I think that I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think
Mm-hmm.
attribution is one.
Mm-hmm.
Give a dollar, get $3, and I can
Yeah,
see that immediate, so I
right.
know that it's working. And as patient as companies and every people want to be, it can just be very. I don't want to say frustrating, but it can take a lot of patience to build up organic social that way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think too, it goes into the content piece and just understanding what type of content to do, and not having clear, back to attribution, but not having clear dollar associated with effort,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that investing the resources and time into those assets is worth it that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, what do you think?
Well, again, I'm sort of and just like you, I'm sort of a scientist, like trying to figure out what works, trying to run all these different, theories and tests. But, we're mostly running ASE campaigns at the moment. And every one of our top, performing campaigns is, you know, um, videos from Randy or myself talking directly to our customers, and they've all started out as organic social media posts. And so for me, it's like, this is really interesting because, um, we'll we kind of always had this theory where we would boost everything, like don't have an ego, just
Mm.
boost whatever content and just kind of see what works. And it's interesting. I mean, as you've learned, just certain thing works that you would never think works, and but it performs and scales efficiently, and it's great. But what I'm seeing, I would say time and time, when more overall, is when the founders are talking directly to customers. And again, this doesn't apply to every brand. You got to have a founder who's willing. You got to have a founder who has a story, or a founder who knows how to communicate. That doesn't, not a lot of founders check that box. And so, but if you do have that formula, at least on our end, it is quite interesting to see how those organic social media posts, I would say, if you don't have a founder who's willing to do that, then get your community to do it for you.
Mm.
And I'm actually testing this with another brand, where we have this high level of engagement with organic social media that we're doing, and we're starting to foster testimonials from the community, and then working with their paid media team to use these testimonials in their paid marketing. And that's a way that we're trying to also see how organic social media can help scale companies.
Yeah, and you bring up something interesting there, which is, I was looking at the attribution piece on why people might prioritize paid over organic, but having a founder or someone on the founding team that is a marketer
Mm-hmm.
understands the importance of it, but also has the comfortability to put themselves out there, get on camera, get in front of people, and build that way
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important. People want to be communicated to. They want to be educated. I think it's only going to deepen. The whole rise and convergence of AI in election cycles and misinformation has just really made it where people like, oh, I want to know it's you. And that's the funny thing too, right? Like, we'll still get comments on our videos like, we think this is a scam. We're like, okay, like, what else do we have to do here? But
Hmm.
people are just, they're skeptical, and so you need to really, but if they see me in their feed 7 more times, I've seen this guy before, let me listen to him, and he keeps showing up, and so it's like that friend who really wants to be your friend, and you're kind of like, I don't know, but they keep showing up, and and all of a sudden become your friend, so um, but I think it's important to educate. I think it's education. We talk about like direct response and selling, but I think education is what I've seen work the best overall.
Yeah, education and entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a gap or an opportunity as well for brands to be comfortable to make content that has nothing to do with a purchase
Mm-hmm.
and have the confidence or the willingness to make content that might be a little bit dicey as
Mm-hmm.
well. And a lot of brands are starting to do that. You see, I'm actually going to share screen on.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
anybody's watching this on YouTube, they can see it. But I mean, Dunkin' Donuts has been in the news, and Stephen Colbert covered this. They did one post, your girl said, I'm not so itsy bitsy. And another one, I've got the long legs. All I need is the daddy.
Oh
And I
man.
mean, it's a donut that looks like a spider. And
Yeah.
this one has 74,000 likes, and this one has 102,000 likes that
Yeah.
way.
Well, who was the brand? Was it you and I talking on Twitter about it? It was they're so unhinged right now. Who is it?
Scrub daddy.
Scrub Daddy's unhinged. Is it the one with like Aiden? Like Aiden. I forget. I mean, but again, this is a strategy that a lot of brands are really just you know going after. And but I get it. Like Gen Z loves unhinged, you
Hmm.
know, and I think what's interesting is that I would actually, going back to one of your original questions, is you know, I would have a different strategy for Facebook than I would TikTok and I would Instagram. If I had a little bit more resources, I think I would, you know, go a little bit crazier, like, you know, pouring salsa down my chest. I don't know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, but
Yeah.
I think it's something where it does get people to kind of stop and be like, okay, what's going on here? This is wild. So
Yeah, and that brings up a good point too of different content for different platforms. There's a theory or a thought that, if
Mm-hmm.
I follow you on Facebook and you're posting this
Mm-hmm.
post, do I want to see it again on Instagram as
Right.
well? Which you bring up a very good point. It comes down to availability of resources and just
Mm-hmm.
being lean and being able to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
having diverse content across platforms can be helpful. Jimmy John's is another one that's pretty unhinged right now as well
I need to check
on
them
their
out.
channel. Yeah, check them out. Well, going back to the earlier question where we were talking about paid versus organic, and we started talking about, the importance of having a marketer on the founding team or somebody, in the decision-making process that sees a priority and the earned growth from organic that way. If someone's listening and they're trying to get started or trying to refresh their organic social for their brand, what kind of advice would you give people to make actionable steps?
Yeah, no, I love this question because this is something where, for me, is like I hear this question a lot, and then I'll go on their website and I'll create like 30 days of content for them right away because
Oh, wow.
I'm just because it's interesting how people and this is something where I think I want to educate people on, but like um you have your products or service lines, right? So like each of your products, I mean, if you have 10 products, I mean that's 10 posts right there. You got your story, you got your testimonials, you have your education piece, you have some sort of money back guarantee. I think we're already like 20 posts deep, right? If you're a store with 10 products, and so I think there's like the most important thing that we can do is we can post every day, is we can show up every day for our audience, and it doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect. But this is what's so great is that literally it's this here. Like that's all that people are
Mhm.
doing that fast, which is wild to think about. So we stress and we overthink about the content that we're going to publish instead of just hitting publish, and at least getting that brand recognition because you just got to think of it as you're on a very busy highway and there's just billboards, but that billboard keeps popping up every day. All of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, what is this? I've seen this. I want to know more about it. But the biggest disservice brands do is they don't hit publish, and that's where they have to start. It doesn't even have to be the best content, but you can easily take your website URL, throw it into ChatGPT and say, hey, give me 30 days of content,
Mm.
right? And ChatGPT can even do that for you. Now, that's a simple hack for just getting started. There's a little bit more nuance, as in marketing when it comes to storytelling and connecting people to it. But what is good about it, at least with ChatGPT, like you have your educational piece done. It's not your creative piece, but at least it's your educational piece,
Mm.
which is the foundation that people need to know when they at least discover your brand.
Yeah, and to bounce off what you're saying as well, getting started and then sticking to it, consistency is that key. Like you said, posting every day. I'm in a different space. I'm in the B2B space with posting content on LinkedIn. And I have my team at my agency that works on some of the content, like clipping podcast clips and
Mm-hmm.
making posts off of that. And there's times where a post may get, 2 or 3 likes, which even for LinkedIn is not huge. LinkedIn engagement's like a third of any other platform,
Yeah,
if not
yeah,
a
yeah,
fifth. But
yeah.
even with that, we didn't get as much engagement, as much eyeballs. But last week we had a lower week in terms of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
A fractional CMO we've worked with before reached out, said we popped up on the feed and wanted to
Yep.
check back in, and a potential client reached out through DMs as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, even if it doesn't seem like with the vanity metrics or instant gratification that it's working, it still can be.
Yeah, it's been super interesting understanding what that looks like. One challenge that I did this year is I've been marketing for, you know, 13, 14 years, and I built a lot of different brands and businesses, but I was like, I'm going to work on the personal brand. And because I've always wanted to make sure when I had an agency, I built a Shopify store to kind of do proof of concept, right? And then when I did that, I was like, okay, this personal brand is sort of the next level, top of funnel, especially B2B, right? And so it's like what I've really learned, and I've had some really interesting speaking opportunities this year, engagement opportunities, and DMs from people who never like or interact with any of my content. And all of a sudden you get a DM and you're like, okay, this is wild. But it's because, again, it's because you just show up every day, you hit publish, and again, you don't look, you're right. Don't have an ego, don't look at the metrics, just show up and try to add value every day. And the world will reward you for that.
How long, with Fresh Chili, how long, looking back, do you feel like it took to see the payoff or to say, hey, this is a channel that is giving us some sort of output here?
It was about a year,
Okay.
for us. I mean, we saw some results right away, and but in a sense of like, a 30,000 a month, a 40,000 a month, 50,000. It didn't seem exponential, and but I would say that um, a year is, I think, when we started doing the cooking group, is I felt like the biggest change.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting thing that we did that really started to make our customers feel valued. And I think, but I have this chart. I don't have it on me. I had it at the last speaking engagement I did. But do you remember Facebook Insights, where you could like track
Mhm.
your engagement versus other brands? I don't know where that went. But at one point, you had Truff, Tostitos, Heinz, French's, Tabasco, and our engagement was more than all those other companies combined
Oh, wow.
on Facebook. And so,
Engagement volume or percentage to follower?
no, volume overall, just
Oh, wow.
just total. I mean, it was ridiculous. I have some screenshots I can send you from that period, but it just really gave me a lot of conviction that we were willing to show up every day and have a relationship. And these other brands, they have a marketing team, that agency or whatever, but they weren't really willing to have a conversation
Hmm.
or focus on the customer. And that's why we're at where we're at today, is because, I mean, I don't know if it's old school, but it's like, uh, it's just old fashioned customer service, old fashioned relationships, and people are thinking everything's moving at the speed of light and they don't know how to keep up. They don't know what to do. Just show up, just be present, and a lot of times, a lot of legacy brands don't know how to do that. Um, and then I think some of the newer brands that have come on board, they're just focusing on paid media, email marketing, and they're just worried more about the sell. But if you want to build something long term, just show up every day.
We've had this conversation. I've had another conversation with a men's shaving brand that has grown their entire business off of Reddit through
Oh,
engaging in communities off of Reddit as
yeah.
well.
Reddit is a
Yeah,
community I'm very highly interested in.
really.
Yeah, that's something where it's like, for next year, like I'm like, okay, because I really started trying to tinker with things in January, February, March, and Reddit's definitely in my top three.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on today. Appreciate the insights you've shared on organic social and just marketing and business as a whole. If anybody wants to connect with you or learn more about you or your businesses, where's the best place to?
Yeah, at the Fresh Chile Co is most of our social media handles across platforms, and for me personal, it's at Chris Ling Social across platforms.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you coming on.
All right, thank you so much.